Welcome to the podcast. Stan Morgan here. Today we're going to be hanging out with Dr. Jay Cleveland. He is a longevity doctor in Nashville, Tennessee. I've had the privilege of working directly with him and his practice. Today we're going to unpack how can we as advisors and business owners bring our best stuff every day. I'm a big advocate for great sleep, healthy diet, exercise, so that whether it's with your clients or your family, you are showing up fully. I do not believe you will reach your full potential unless you are also healthy and you prioritize that in your life. Let's jump in with Dr. Jay Cleveland. Dr. Cleveland, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Stan. I appreciate that.
A little behind the scenes, Dr. Cleveland is my doctor. He's put me through the full gambit, blood tests, all this crazy stuff. And so it triggered me to think through, I had not thought of that level of analysis on myself until you got a hold of me and put me through that. And so it made me think it'd be fun to have you on the podcast. And, we're talking to a lot of advisors and business owners. I think health is the core of are you bringing your best stuff every day? So I think we'll unpack a lot today, but we'll also try to hone in on if you think, what's the best thing that people could be doing tomorrow to make the biggest impact. So we'll jump right in. But if you can give us your background and, I think some of your journey and kind of what ended up getting you in this more holistic, proactive medicine approach.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for having me again, Stan. I appreciate it. So my background is I trained in both internal medicine and emergency medicine. And after my chief year in the ER, I took a job in Franklin, Tennessee, and I've been in that ER for about 20 years. And every day I was there, I kept seeing things that no one else was finding, or at least no one else was looking for. It was the same heart attacks, the same strokes, the same diabetes, the same dementia, the same cancer. And I thought, why am I the one finding these things? Why is no one else finding these things? And I think the primary care world is somewhat broken right now. I think it's driven largely by medications, insurance, big pharma. And so I think people need to take onus of their own health. And so I did on my own. I got into this longevity journey myself on my own interest about 5-6 years ago. And then after talking to my wife and her really getting just upset with me just talking about it, I said, why don't you go do something about it? And she got sick of listening to me and said, put your money where your mouth is. And I did. And so I got out of the ER about a year ago. And I've been privileged to have great patients like yourself that are interested in their own health and really just stopping the traditional medicine, this whack-a-mole medicine approach where you don't treat it until you see it. We know the pitfalls that are out there, and to wait on them, which is the current standard of care, is ludicrous to me. If we can get ultra preventative, we hopefully will never see those diseases. And if we do see them, they're at such an early stage, we can actually treat them way ahead of the time they present to something like the ER.
Yeah. To me, maybe I'm listening to just the right podcasts and reading the right articles, but it does feel like there's a movement or kind of an awakening. I don't know if it's kind of mass scale, but it is to the point you made. It feels like mostly things are reactive. The U.S. spends the most on healthcare in the world, I believe, yet we're one of the most unhealthy societies. In that, I have a good buddy, Dr. Josh Axe, who was putting out some content the other day, and he was like, there's a high percentage of things that happen to us that are actually within our control. Genetics obviously play part of it, but if I think most of us knew, okay, it's in my control, remove some excuses, and there's a reasonable path forward. I don't have to be David Goggins or, obsess over this stuff. There's a reasonable path to where I think it's a disproportionate benefit of what you can change and what the benefit would be. Is that fair?
Oh, I think that's extremely fair, and there's a huge movement, and I'm glad to see this awakening and this getting away from let me just take a pill to fix what I now currently have, rather than what can I do to modify myself so that doesn't even exist to begin with. It's just knowledge is power when it comes to your health. The more you know, the better off you are.
Yeah. So we're talking to the business owners are listening, advisors are listening, competitive people that want to bring their best, that want to succeed. I also know a lot of business owners that are like, I want to be successful in business, but I also want to have energy when I come home and I want to show up in multiple places. What are you seeing with your patients that are kind of high performers, type A people? Are they kind of just slowly drifting into unhealth? Is it where, hey, from the outside they look okay, but actually internally kind of diagnose so that people listening can say hey, maybe I fall in one of those camps and I should be a little more intentional?
They are my best and worst patients simultaneously because they are so driven that some of them are just going to die at their desk, right? And they think things like sleep. Who needs it? I don't have time for sleep. I don't have time for good nutrition. I don't have time to exercise. I just need to be working all the time. I need to be producing for myself, for my family, for my clients. But if I can open their mind to what these very rational approaches that we've overlooked now for some time, they're certainly driven in that regard as well. So if I can just say, hey, look, you can do both. And in fact, by doing both, you're going to be better at your job. It's really eye opening to them because right now it's just 100 miles an hour in one direction.
Yeah. How do you think? I was listening to a podcast the other day that at times kind of bashes America for our, to always strive. You're only as good as your next win. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a reason why we invent stuff, that we have the biggest businesses in the world. And so I try as an entrepreneur to say, okay, I don't want to lose my fire. Like I don't want
That's right.
headlines or stats to say, well, the only way to not be as anxious or to be healthier is to just stop creating, stop producing. But I do think, like a professional athlete would, it's like, I will not bring my best stuff. I will not recover and bounce back quick enough for the next game if I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. What would you say? Because I want to get really practical here. I know there's obvious things like diet, exercise, sleep, water. I want to start giving our listeners, like, if we start ranking these things, or if you said you can only focus on one and get really good at it first before you move on to the others, start coaching us through what you would do if you took my labs, we did it, and you started coaching me up.
Even without your labs, even without any genetics, it's sleep. Period. Sleep, if you look at sleep, diet, and exercise as the three, paramount things for longevity and health. I really, the more I've dug in, the more I've done my own personal journey, sleep completely dictates your ability to eat right and to exercise right. And I'll explain why. So if you have a poor night's sleep, you tend to eat terribly the next day. I'm talking about a 300 to 500 calorie swing. And it's not on carrots. It's not on celery. It's on the worst stuff you can possibly imagine. You're grabbing the ho-hos, the ding-dongs, and the Doritos. And that's just the way we are. It has to do with a couple of hormones called leptin and ghrelin and their interaction with the body. And that's a terror. So it's a direct corollary between sleep and diet. And when you look at exercise, if you have a poor night's sleep, you mentioned athletes, there's a 30% reduction in performance the next day. That's like a boxer going down in round 7. My daughter is a big runner, and her coach is always like, get a good night's sleep. He said that for years. Well, I found out why. With a poor night's sleep, it actually impairs the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen at the lung level. You don't breathe as well the next day. And I can tell you, if you're not breathing as well, you're not running well. So sleep directly impacts your performance, I can assure you.
What if we could define a good night's sleep? I've heard different things where it's like, no, there's a time we should all go to bed and a time we should wake up. And, some of us are, I like to stay up a little later and wake up a little later. Leaving a little room for flex, like how can we define that?
I mean, I'm looking at, basically, I tell my patients, give me 7 hours minimum. Okay. That's what I consider. If you're less than 7 hours, I can assure you there's impact on the brain over time, right? There's a very small percentage of people that carry a couple of obscure genes that can truly get by with 4 hours of sleep and not have brain damage. But Matthew Walker says it best, who is a great resource on sleep. He said, if you take that number and round it to the nearest whole number, the number is 0. I mean, it's a small percentage. It exists, but it's infinitesimally small. Your listeners have a better chance of being struck by lightning than carrying the gene that allows them to get by with less than 7 hours of sleep without cognitive impairment. So I'm looking for 7 hours of good sleep. There's 2 phases of sleep. There's deep sleep and there's REM sleep, and they both are beneficial to the body in different ways. The first half of the night of sleep is really your deep sleep. That's your restorative sleep. That's what's allowing you to restore, recover, clear proteins from the brain that can tangle and eventually cause risk of dementia and things like that. That's your restorative. I worked out hard. My body's regenerating. And then there's the REM sleep, which is really your problem solving time. That's the time that your body is going through the stresses that you experienced in the day and trying to come up with solutions. I mean, your brain can work for you when you're asleep, I mean, this has been shown time and time again. Edison was a great example of this. So Thomas Edison would have something called the Edison nap, where he would kick back in his chair in his office in the afternoon. He would put a pan on the floor and hold a couple of steel balls in his hand. And as he drifted off to sleep, his hand would relax. He would drop the balls and he would write down whatever he was thinking about that time, whatever he dreamed about. And actually, it's really crazy, but that he used that. Paul McCartney was famous in the lyrics to "Let It Be" came to him in his dream. I mean, there's been time and time again that your brain will work for you if you let it. So this whole idea that sleep is a detriment to your productivity is exactly the opposite of that. It is a benefit to your productivity. And if you can get yourself a good night's rest, you will do better in the office the next day. I absolutely assure you.
Nice. All right. So I'm looking at my Garmin right now, trying to look at my sleep.
Yeah.
Hour and a half of REM. 7.5 hours total. So I guess that would not be bad. So even if it was 10 to 5, 11 to 6, 7 should be our baseline.
7 should be the baseline. Now, you mentioned earlier, like you're kind of more of a night owl, and that's a natural occurrence. We have the early birds and we have the night owls. It's a pretty fascinating reason why people exist in both realms. And this goes back evolutionarily to when we used to sleep in large groups. And it did not benefit the large group for everyone to go to bed at the same time. You had no one who was guarding the first half, and you had no one who was foraging in the early hours of the morning. So this divergence of an early bird and night owl actually goes back to, again, the Sentinel hypothesis from long ago. The unfortunate thing is that today's society really doesn't allow for the night owls too much, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to say, "Hey, boss, I'm a night owl. I'll see you 10:30." It doesn't work that well. But so they and that actually has an impact, right? And so those people suffer a bit compared to the early birds for sure.
Yeah, I think mine's directly connected to how quickly I can get my kids to sleep. To if I can have my hour to decompress and hang out and then go to sleep.
You need to have that. There needs to be a natural, I mentioned Edison again, as much as he kind of also wrecked our sleep a bit, right? The incandescent bulb. We're not meant to have this bright light at night that we're constantly subjected to. So, if you can take the time to get into a routine, that's what I tell everyone. If you can develop a routine, and I know people travel and they have kids and their sports, and I get it, but as much as you can, if you can develop a routine to where at night you're dimming the lights, you're giving yourself some time away from your device. I mean, blue light is a terrible detriment. I know your guys probably and girls probably are working late. They're on their device late right before bed. That completely disrupts your melatonin, and to the point where actually, if you're on East Coast time, it puts your melatonin on West Coast time. So it can delay your sleep onset by a few hours just with about an hour of blue light exposure at night. So trying to get yourself some time, a nice cool room and quiet and dark. I mean, going back to evolutionarily, I don't think we've ever really gotten past we want to sleep in a cave. And if you can recreate that environment, you're going to be better off. Yeah.
What, is it a TV that's 10 feet away from you? Is it just a cell phone? Like, what's the blue light?
Cell phone. Yeah, the blue lights. I'm fine with the TV in the room if it, obviously if it relaxes you, right? My wife and I will find watching some old reruns kind of takes our mind off things, and that's a great way to do it. But it's really that close blue light exposure that is really you can use blue light blockers, and I know there's ways around it to some degree, but you're still getting the exposure on the face. So as much as you can, I use a Kindle at night to read my books because when my wife's asleep and I can kind of take my mind off things, and it has a much less blue light exposure than trying to read off an iPad or your phone.
Yeah. I do think I want to hold space I think I'm a pretty disciplined person, but there's times where I scroll, watch a show too late. It does affect me the next day. That I think this is harder to do than it maybe sounds like as we talk about it. Cause I think there's so many forces
it's extremely difficult
acting against us. Like there's almost, this enemy that's like my whole goal in life is to make sure Dr. Cleveland doesn't sleep well, whether it's cell phone, kids schedule. And so it's so powerful. I think I heard a CrossFit athlete. I don't know. It was a guy that won it a few years. He's like, if you could put sleep in a capsule, like it'd be illegal. Like they would ban it because of how beneficial it is for you. And
that's great.
So it's so important, yet it's still something a lot of us struggle with.
Oh, you're exactly right. Life gets in the way, right? And that's part of it. So like I said, I don't want this to ever be stressful, right? I don't want you, stressing out about, oh my gosh, I've got to get to sleep in a few hours. I've got to, that's not what this is meant to be. Right. And that if you're doing that, we've lost the battle already. So it's just a matter of working it as best you can when you can and getting more nights of good sleep than that. If you can do that, you're so far ahead of the curve already.
Yep. And it does feel
everything
like it
in
falls in that
moderation.
category that it's the thing you were going to wish you would have done, whether it's the dementia, just energy for your kids and your business. Like it, instead of asking you to do 10 things, everybody listening, it's like, I love that we're saying the first one would be get 7 hours and try to come into a schedule with it. Because your future self's going to thank you, and you can't go back in time and undo it.
No, and you can't build up this whole idea. You can build up a sleep debt. Like I'll burn the candle at both ends during the week, and then I'm gonna take it easy on the weekend. It doesn't work. Not only because the weekend gets busy too, but simply your brain doesn't work like this. You can't bank the hours and then get them back again, and so there's going to be detriment to the brain over time, for sure. You spend a third of your life roughly asleep. Right. And that sounds like wasted time to someone who's productive. That's what I always say. I tell someone who's really productive, like, that's not wasted time. It needs to happen because you're going to be more productive for those 2/3 you're awake.
That's good. All right. So sleep, we would say if you could only, everybody listening, if you could do one thing, dial that in first. Then we mentioned diet and exercise. Which one comes second? I know they're all important.
I mean, I think they're both important. Now, when you look at your body and people look in the mirror and they see that bathing suit fat, they immediately start jumping on the treadmill and the bike and running. And that's great. I mean, you definitely need exercise for longevity. There's not a better marker for longevity than truly exercise, in addition to sleep, of course. But it really comes to your body. How you appear is diet. I tell all my patients, you cannot outrun your fork. Right? You cannot outrun your fork. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're not eating well, you're losing. And so really, I think I'd probably put diet as the second thing to tackle for sure.
Is it typically the quality and type of food, or is it the volume that's an issue?
All of the above. I don't mind a good volume if it's good food, right? It's eating real food. It's getting back away from this processed food. When you look in a grocery store, I mean, the majority of what you're seeing wasn't even on this earth a few decades ago. It didn't exist, right?
It's actually pretty impressive. And you're like, how much time scientists have spent creating new types of things to eat. When you look in a store, you're like, somebody thought of all this.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the scary part is one of the biggest mergers and acquisition in the 80s was when the cigarette companies finally got busted for causing cancer. They rolled over to the food industry, and now they've got us addicted to food. I mean, when you see the commercial that the potato chip, you can't eat just one. It's designed so you can't eat just one. I promise you, there's things in it that make you innately crave another and another and another. And so it's getting back to real food. It's real steak, real butter. It's avoiding things like trans fat, crappy carbohydrates. It's just getting back to kind of how our grandparents ate, really, this real diet. Your farmer's market is a great resource. Wherever you live, I'm sure there's a farmer's market, and take advantage of that. Get real food from real farmers, and your body will thank you for sure.
What's the baby step in that category? I mean, I think the ultimate version, is you're at a farmer's market every Saturday, stocking up for the week, fresh vegetables, foods, you're meal prepping, all the things. If you were to say, here's one or two things that you could start doing immediately, is it, hey, don't drink your calories, only do water? Is it avoid these types of foods? What's kind of some quick wins?
I love definitely hydrate. I love water. I think it's great with little sea salt or minerals, some type of salt with that's great. Help you retain that in your vasculature. Definitely hydration is paramount. I'd say if one thing, it's protein. People are. It's an absolute epidemic, and so getting enough protein in. If you listen to the experts and you look at someone like David Goggins, I can assure you he's getting about 1 gram a pound of protein in a day to keep his musculature where it is. And so, and they've done studies, and so they've taken two groups and they've given one high protein and the other low protein. The people who ate a low protein meal were hungry sooner and ate more poorly later than the people who had a good. So you're going to benefit yourself by getting good protein in, whether that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, whether you do intermittent fasting, totally up to you in conjunction with your doctor. But however you take it in, making sure it's protein forward is really going to benefit you in the long run. from satiety, from energy. You're not going to have those crashes during the day. I know it feels good to drink that, it's like the Beastie Boys song. I like my sugar with coffee and cream, right? I mean, I know that tastes good, but you're going to crash later when that wears off. And so getting a good sustainable protein diet is really, I think if you had to pick one thing right now, that's what's lacking in most people.
What's the salt you mentioned to me the other day? Is it like a Celtic
I
salt
like
or?
like a Celtic sea salt. Yeah, I mean, I like anything like that. That's just kind of got some good minerals to it. I mean, again, unfortunately, by itself, water isn't overtly hydrating. I know that kind of that's hard to hear, but you need something. Now, we don't need Gatorades and things like that. I mean, I think it's processed, But if you can just take, like a little pinch of some type of salt and have some water in the morning, lemon, you can make your own electrolyte drink very easily with natural things like lemon juice and some salts and water, and that will be really hydrating for you. And
is there an issue with like the sea salts? I've read like kind of the microplastic stuff. I mean, obviously there's, again,
oh my God,
we could go down a huge rabbit hole of a million things we all should think of, and we're being poisoned all the time. But to keep it practical, would you say stay away from sea salt, or you're like, that's really just not that big of a factor?
No, I mean, I think, trust me, it's a factor in everything. It's a factor in the bottled water people are drinking right now watching this probably. I mean, they're drinking a credit card worth of plastic a week from that. So yeah, no, if you can find good sourced anything that's free of microplastics, it's tougher, it's more expensive, unfortunately, but you're going to benefit from it. I mean, it is everywhere, and it causes such significant inflammation in the body with this continued exposure to microplastics. So yeah, if you can avoid it, absolutely do.
Yeah, the bottled water thing was convicting to me. I can't remember if I read a report on it where it kind of was like, especially if it's sitting in your truck. Like I used to keep a huge thing of water in the bed of my truck just for emergencies. And I'm like, that thing's been baking in the Tennessee heat in the bed of my truck for how long? And so I've shifted. Then it's like you find glass. Obviously you can get your own water bottles at home. And then, was it Liquid Death has canned water? So I don't know if they line that with anything.
Yes.
So it is this thing where you can just get like almost somewhat obsessed.
Yeah. Oh, you can't, absolutely. I mean, people, then you get into reverse osmosis at home. And I mean, just where does it stop? But again, there are some low hanging fruits that you can avoid. And yeah, heated plastic is terrible. I've stopped putting any plastics in the dishwasher years ago because I'm just taking that plastic and heating it and taking all those chemicals and bringing it to the surface and exposing everything else that I own. It just got exposed to plastic. So my glassware, my silverware, everything else just got coated. So yeah, there's some low hanging fruit for sure.
That's a good call. I like that one. Okay. All right. So sleep, that's a win. Obviously, I think there's versions of all of these. I think there's probably a quick change everyone can make. And then as you celebrate those quick wins, you don't have to become Superman overnight. Diet, I think that's a big win. I know for me, I went pure water a long time ago. Don't drink much alcohol. That was a shift that was a big win. Moving into exercise, I think there's a lot of resistance around this one around us as far as waking up early, doing it when we don't want to do it, yet we all know we should be doing it. You challenged me when we did ours that I need more zone 2 because you're like, hey, I like to lift weights and I'll do some CrossFit stuff. Probably I'll go beyond failure, which isn't always a good thing. What coach us up a little bit on like what's a good daily exercise that's attainable?
No, I think you're great. Yeah, again, you fall into the category of like, I'm going to do it 130%, right? And so, and that's a great attitude to have. Trust me, I'm not belittling that. That's what gets you to where you are in life and something we should all strive for. But when it comes to exercise, I think we need to think about it a little bit differently. And so there's something called the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time we're working out less strenuously than you just described. We're in more of a conversational cardio zone where you can speak in abbreviated sentences, say 3 to 4 words when you're doing the treadmill or a bike or a run. And if you do that 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time you go and you hit it hard, you do the interval training, the breathless workouts, the really I'm going to puke right now kind of workout. That's fine. Like, about 20% of the time. And if you look at Olympic athletes, this is how they train. I mean, they do it in much larger intervals than we have time for, but it's still that pyramid. And so it's this pyramid of building a nice aerobic base, this zone 2 cardio, and then that peak of anaerobic where you're deprived of oxygen. It's that mix between the two that really will build something called VO2 max, which is a measure of how much oxygen you can utilize during exercise. And if you listen to somebody, an expert like Peter Attia, who has done so much for the field of longevity, I mean, he equates that directly to longevity. The higher the VO2 max overall, the healthy you are. But I can assure you, going back to sleep and diet, you're not going to get there without all three. But it's that zone 2 kind of training that's going to help build that. I monitor mine. I have a Garmin watch, and I was hitting it hard. Maybe not as hard as you were, but I was trying hard every time, and the thing would not budge. I was stuck around the middle of my 50th. Yeah. And I did that for about 18 months. And I was like, is my watch broken or am I broken? And then I learned, no, it's me. And I switched over to the 80-20 method of working out. And suddenly I shot up like from 40 to 46. I mean, just a really good, a huge change for me. And now in a much different percentile in the population. And so, but I did that doing, working out less strenuously than I had been. The other benefit of that is, you can get stuff done while you're working out. I mean, if you're a financial advisor, you can listen to a podcast and really retain it. When you're breathless on a treadmill, a verge of collapse, you can't retain anything. But if you're jogging along in a conversational cardio, you can multitask for sure. And you can do it the next day. The recovery window is shorter. You're not so sore that you can't work out. And so there's a lot of benefit to this method of training, for sure.
So you're telling me if you do a leg day and you can't sit on the toilet in the next day or two, that's a problem?
Yeah, no, it can be, but I think the bigger point is if that happens, which is going to happen, don't try to push yourself through it. I mean, I tell my patients all the time, the recovery is just as important as the exercise itself. And if part of that, we check that with the genetics testing. You may recall yours. People have different windows of recovery. And if you have a longer period of recovery, your body, that's just how you're made. And so you'll benefit more. Those aren't wasted days. Recovery days are not wasted days. And that's what I think a driven person feels like. It's like, that's a day I could have done something more, but I promise you're doing something for yourself. Yeah. By recovery. That is help. And you'll work out better the next day. I promise.
Nice. So, what would the advisors listening now, I know that what you put me through is really helpful, and then kind of the ongoing protocol we're doing. It's just now, as opposed to me waiting for something to go wrong, hopefully my healthcare moving forward is more of this like check-in routine. Something doesn't have to be wrong, but we're going to stay ahead of stuff. For everybody listening, explain like, hey, there's traditional medicine where it's like, oh, something's wrong, I'm going to go get it checked out. Maybe it's a medication to treat the symptom. The way you practice, and I know everybody listening can't all of a sudden sign up with you tomorrow. What can they be looking for? Maybe there's something like your office close to them.
Yeah, well, first off, read up yourself. I mean, an educated patient is like when you walk in and you already know your stuff. It makes the whole interaction better, and we can go ahead and just start rather than bring you up to speed. So find out. Read up on Good Energy is a great book on our diet. Read Outlive by Peter T. I mean, do your Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. I mean, do your own diligence. And then look for a provider in the area that is open-minded, right? I always tell people there's a huge bandwidth of providers out there, right? You've got the doctors that will only treat you if you fall in those 2 pages of the book they're looking at right now, and they're going to treat you with the medication no matter what. And then you have, the people that are on the other spectrum that are trying to rub crystal on cancer, which is ludicrous, right? I mean, so you need someone who's open-minded and that can pull from all spectrums, right? So I always tell people the same thing. Like, I can look at someone and tell you, hey, you definitely need a traditional medication for this, but have you considered sauna for this? I mean, so you can blend it, because I don't think anyone is exactly right here. So find someone who's open-minded, and it's a conversation. I mean, I rather than me just sit there and tell you what to do, I love having, you'll bring things to my attention. I bring things to yours. It's a journey together on this. And so trying to find somebody like that, and that's usually in the longevity field versus a traditional primary care. And so that try to find someone in that realm, and then look at tests. I mean, see what your doctor's doing. There's great tests out there that, we did a genetic genetic tests together, and that really shows us how you function, rather than just go and take a bunch of supplements from a GNC or something that may or may not benefit you. My practice is built on looking at your labs, looking at your genetics, and then trying to find a very bespoke regimen that benefits you as an individual. And so trying to find someone who is open to that and has genetic testing capabilities. Doing advanced screening for cancer. Really right now, routine screening for cancer is colonoscopies and mammogram for women and pap smears for women and skin cancer, and just the routine stuff. But we screen for 55 different cancers with one of our products. And so when you look at something like cancer and you look at traditional medicine, the traditional medicine approach is wait till the cancer appears and then treat it. Yeah. Well, at that point, it's there and it's maybe way beyond treatment. And there's been no advances in palliative care for a number of years, I can assure you. So if you can detect it early, and you'll never get to that stage. So trying to find someone who's got some advanced cancer. We do advanced heart screening. I think cardiology again is behind on this. They don't get interested until you have chest pain and you're short of breath, and all of a sudden everybody's like, wait, what's going on? Well, I can assure you what's been going on has been going on for decades. And in my 20 years in the ER, I never had one patient who came with a heart attack that said, boy, I had this coming. They're all surprised. They all felt good right until it happened. Wow. And so we have found, we've been screening asymptomatic patients, which is a new way to think about cardiology. So people have no symptoms at all. We're putting them through advanced imaging and we're finding disease. In the past 3 weeks alone, we found 5 patients that required intervention. One as young as 42 that was loaded with disease that had no idea it was there. And he ended up getting a stent and saved his life. And so these modalities are out there. They're just not standard yet. And so you have to seek them out on your own accord.
That's great.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, my kids are coming to my mind, 11, 10, and 5. At what age would you let me bring them in and do the blood panel stuff, the genetic stuff? Like what's appropriate?
I think it's a great question, Sin, and I get that often, and I don't think there's a right answer. I think that the kids benefit from how the parents live. So my take is if I treat you and you bring what I'm teaching you into the household and your kids are getting off their devices, getting fresh air and good real food and exercise and limited screen time and all the things that we talk about, and they have a good solid pediatrician that just treats their things, I think that's really enough right now. I think really when you're looking at, we look at things like dementia risk with our genetic testing, we don't need to worry if your 11-year-old carries the ApoE gene for Alzheimer's. I want that kid to live a great life and not worry. You don't want to burden somebody with that. So that's something you can take on at your stage in life and do. So I think let your kid be a kid, but with the changes that you're making, they'll benefit from as well.
Love that. That's great. Doctor, I appreciate you, man. We're going to have you back on. We'll unpack some other stuff another time, but I appreciate you.
Anytime, Stan. It's great to see you as always.
All right, we'll talk soon.